So we've talked about the opening and number of techniques that you can use in your introduction. Let's talk about the closing. How can you end your speech properly? Before we go into answering that question, tell me, how long should be your introduction and your conclusion, percentage-wise? So if your speech, let's say your speech is 10 minutes, how long should be your introduction? So 10 minutes is 100%, right? So do a little math with me. If 10 minutes is 100%, then how long should your introduction be in percents, and how long should your conclusion be in percents? What do you think? 2 minutes each. That's good. So if you got 10 minutes total, so that would be like 20%, 20%. So you talk about now, all you have left is, think, 6 minutes for the most important part, where all your information is contained. Do you think you can unfold something in 6 minutes by having spent 2 minutes in introduction, 2 minutes in conclusion? I say if you got 10 minutes, you can't go that long. That's too much. Because the content is very important. It's important to get people in. It's like plane taking off, plane landing. How long do you actually spend going down and going up? A lot less than flying usually, unless you're flying a really short flight, which is not really worth it. So if your speech is 10 minutes, you probably should spend maybe 2 minutes max on your introduction and about 1 minute on your conclusion. See, that's 1/3 of your entire time. So that's okay, because now you got 2/3 to say what it is that you wanted to say. And that's all right, you could do that. But, so I would say, statistically, people say that about 10% of the total speech should be introduction, and roughly about 5% should be conclusion. So think about that. However many minutes you got, which I only ask you guys usually to do a 5-minute speech. So in a 5-minute speech, you have brief introduction, 10% of your 5 minutes. That means 50 seconds. Oh, actually, no, it's not 50 seconds, but 5%, 60 seconds times, all right. So we can do a little math, but not long at all. So as you are ending your speech, you got to be short, sweet, and to the point. You can't even take the same amount of time in your introduction, but here's why. You've already said everything you wanted to say. Do you notice that the video that we just watched talked about writing your conclusion first and then writing your introduction? It actually is a very good technique. You can use this in your papers as well. If you ever have to write a paper, a lot of times writing your conclusion first and then writing your introduction is actually a really powerful technique. So as you close, you want it to be short, sweet, and to the point, and one of the things that you can do is you can create a sense that you're closing your speech. You don't need to tell people, okay, I'm done now. If you have to tell people I'm done now, you're really talking to a bunch of dumb people that can't figure out you're done. Essentially, you are basically bringing a speech to a close by doing what? Something like a summary. Did you notice in the video how the lady was speaking, she says she made a little summary. That was her close. The guy, he did a quote, which was still a summary. His quote was, an ancient philosopher said, if you go after 2 rabbits, you're not going to catch either one of them. The point is, let's focus. Remember? That was his closing. That was his entire conclusion. So you can summarize what you said. You can issue a challenge, for example. If your speech is to persuade people to do something, then you can challenge them to do that very thing. If your speech is to inform them to do something, then you can challenge them to change their mind about a particular issue or something that you're trying to explain to them. You can summarize your major points or ideas. So in your speech, you probably said A, B, C, D, E, F, G, however many points you made, right? You can summarize them very quickly in your own words differently now. Not the same way you've stated them, although you might want to repeat them. You might want to restate your central idea in a words different in which you stated it in your opening. You may do a quotation. You may close exactly like that guy closed with just a quotation like that. And that quotation makes it what? It makes the speech come to a point of an end where you understand. He says, okay, you go chase after two rabbits, you're not going to catch either one of them. That's what I want to say. That's the point of my speech. Let's focus on what I said. Let's concentrate on this area that I wanted to highlight. So we never heard his speech, but we heard how he ended it. And so that was very, very effective. So you can use an illustration, you can use a story. Again, just as you can use an illustration or story in an opening, you can do the same thing in a closing. Again, I would say that stories can be very good. Stories can be very emotional. If you want to move a person to a point of a decision, stories are very effective. If I want to convince you to do something, I'll tell you a story that'll break your heart, and you say, okay, I want to do it. Why? Because emotionally you are touched. Now you have a connection to something very real. And so closing with an illustration or story is good. You can supply some additional inducement. A lot of marketing speeches are like that. If you're trying to convince people to believe something or to do something, you can throw in an added bonus, sort of say, in the end. But by doing that, you're communicating to people very clearly that I am at the end of my speech. Again, without saying it, you're at the end of the speech. Because you're restating, you're reiterating what you've already said, and now sweetening the deal, sort of say. Okay? You can ask a question, you can close the question, and you can also ask a question and answer that question. As a question answer technique as well. You can also state your personal intention. You can use yourself as an example. You can close with your own life. Again, you want to make a powerful impact on people, make it personal. Make it personal by saying, I am going to do this, or I decided to do this. This is what I'm doing with my life. Again, a very personal belief type statement, a personal intent statement. You may hear people's stories or something like that, and they're going to tell you like how they lost weight or something like that, and they're going to say, all right, that's what I did, I signed up. So here's the number, call that number or something like that, and you join some health program or something like that. You see, that's a very powerful personal testimony, and then a person actually using themselves as an example. It's a personal appeal, and it's a imitation, and so you're expressing your own personal intent. That's what you're going to do. That's how you're going to act as a speaker, and that they may actually affect some people. So these are all effective ways to close that the book highlights in that second part of chapter 8 that we're working through right now. So hopefully you have seen some of that in the video and it made sense to you. You guys have any questions that you want to talk about? Do you want to sample a speech or something like that? You got a speech for me that you want to share your brilliant introduction or your brilliant conclusion with me. What are you thinking? Talk to me, guys. What are you thinking about introductions and conclusions? What's in your mind about that? Do you find any of this helpful at all? Do you think you're going to use any of this information in your own speech making? Do you think you can construct an introduction and conclusion? No?
But we can practice.
That's the idea, you can practice. So last time I made you guys do like central ideas and stuff like that. So I said, what's your central idea, right? So last time we actually didn't practice introductions and conclusions. But we can practice introductions and conclusions now. So how about this? Give me a topic. Hopefully something I know about, okay? Or something everybody knows about. Give me a topic, anybody. What do you want to talk about? What would you like to hear a speech about? How about the importance of getting good sleep before you come to class? Okay, I'm not picking on you, I'm not picking on you guys. Well, maybe just a little bit. Maybe just a tiny bit. Because you're not participating, so I have to pull it out of you. It's like I'm a dentist going to, to pull out your teeth or something. We're just talking. This is for your benefit. I'm trying to offer you a little practical training. and I'm offering you a freedom of picking your own topics, which is how cool is that? You know, let's say the benefits of a healthy sleep. That's our topic, all right? So since we're on that. So, benefits of healthy sleep. I need you to think of a central idea. Like if I was going to talk about healthy sleep, what could be my central idea? Remember, a central idea is a statement or a thesis. It's some sort of a statement, just makes an impact. You know, the topic is healthy sleep. But I can't just say healthy sleep. That's not my central idea. Central idea says something about healthy sleep. So what do I want to say about healthy sleep?
Healthy sleep predicts healthy life.
Healthy sleep produces healthy life. Yes, that's true. Anybody else?
Healthy sleep makes study better.
Makes study better. Okay, it makes it actually work. How about we flip it, just for fun? I'm asking you what healthy sleep does, right? You're thinking like, what is it? Or what does it do, right? That's how you're thinking. How about we flip it and we take it negative? No sleep means bad day. Lack of sleep means failure in class, right? See, now I got a shock statement, right? Did I get a central idea that got you just a little bit trembling? Lack of sleep means you fail. That's a very powerful punch, sort of say central idea. Now, can I develop that central idea? Yeah, I can develop that central idea. I could talk about how sleep is essential, it's important to you, right? So I can do about the importance. I can talk about our physical bodies, how they're made, how we need to have this many hours of sleep per day, and if we don't, what's going to happen? I can use an example. I can use an illustration. I can use an illustration of a baby. How many hours does a baby sleep per day? Why? Because they're growing, they're getting stronger. And look how fast the baby develops. They go from not being able to walk to walking. They go from not being able to talking. Look how quickly their brains grow. And so I can use the illustration of a baby and say, now imagine, I'm going to rob that baby of sleep. What do you think, how well that baby's going to grow? How well that baby's going to develop? Do you think that baby's going to grow up to be smart? Do you think that baby's going to be strong? Do you think that baby's going to learn how to talk well? Maybe not as good as the baby that gets all the sleep it wants, right? So I can talk about the importance. I can talk about the bad effects. So I can talk about the illnesses, okay, that comes out of sleep. And I can give you an example of some sort, of some terrible illness that comes out of lack of sleep or something like that, okay? So I can come up with a number of ideas and develop my speech. But here's what I want you also to remember that I talked about last week. Last week I talked about, before you get into your actual body, because this is my body, right? So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3. So that's my body. So I'm going to have another point here. Before I get into my body, I need an introduction, right? And this is what we're talking about. So what is my introduction going to be? What method do you think I should use? What technique do you think I should use from our chapter? Take it straight from our chapter to introduce this topic of talking about how sleeping is so important. So if you don't sleep, you fail. Remember, that's my central idea. So what would be a good technique for me to open my speech? What do you think? Suspense? Conflict, a quote, a story. What do you think would be a good one to open? What can I come up with? You guys have to help me. I'm not going to write this speech until you help me. I'm only going to write it until you help me. You're not helping me. I'm not writing it. Suggest. A joke? Would a joke be good?
Mhm.
Why would a joke be good? What would be the reason why I would open this speech with a joke? Is this a serious speech or not? No, not a serious speech? So telling people that they're going to fail in life is not serious? Actually, it's a really strong and serious speech. To tell your audience that if they don't sleep, they're going to fail in life is a really strong and powerful point. And you actually need to dilute it with humor. It actually would be good to tell a joke. It's about a person falling asleep in the wrong time or wrong place or something like that. Okay, so I don't have a joke like that on top of my head right now, but I'm sure I can find one. If that was my assignment and I was working on it, I would come up with some kind of funny joke or a funny little story to tell you about a person falling asleep in the wrong place in the wrong time and ending up somewhere else. Okay? So there's a movie that comes to mind right now. Remember I told you I was born and raised in Russia. So Russia is a communist country back in those days. And communist countries have a tendency of doing things the same way. They would build a city and they would use the same big construction company to build all the buildings. All the buildings look the same. Okay? All the doors look the same. All the stairs look the same. And so there's a really funny movie in Russia where a guy gets drunk on the New Year and he gets on a plane and flies to a wrong city. And it just happens that in that city he takes a cab and tells the driver to drive him to his address. And it's a very common street name, like Main Street or something, right? And he says, take me to 111 Main Street. So he takes him 111 10th Street. And it happens to be a building that looks just like the one at home, but he's in the wrong city. And he walks up the flight of stairs and he goes to the third floor and he stands in front of his door and it says 3A. He knows he lives in apartment 3A because that's his home. And the door looks exactly the same because the same building company built those buildings all over the place. And guess what? He takes out his key and he opens the door and it actually opens. Because guess what? The same company made the same keys and the same door locks because there's only one company that builds these buildings. So he lets himself into an apartment and it all looks a lot like his place, except the guy is completely drunk and he wakes up the next day and he doesn't understand what's going on in his life because he has no idea that he just ended up being in the wrong place, in the wrong city, and he can't figure out how he got to where he got. But everything looks familiar. Yesterday, it all looked perfect because he was drunk. He wakes up and he realizes he's in a different place. Also, everything else is the same. So anyway, it's a funny story I'm telling you because it is a movie. A whole movie is built on that, and it's a comedy. But it makes fun of how things are the same, you know. So I can tell a little story. I can tell a little humorous joke right here in my intro. What else can I say in this intro? Because I got a really strong punchline. You know, if you don't sleep, you fail. Basically, you know, lack of sleep will lead you to failure in life. I can build around that. Remember, if I have a very short speech, I can simply use a forecast. What is a forecast? Remember we talked about forecast?
Prediction.
That's right. So give me a forecast. What would I say if I was making this speech in my forecast? What would I say? Pretend you're me making that speech. What would you say? Give me a forecast. Forecast is a prediction. You're absolutely right. So what would I say? Come on, give me an example. Just brainstorm.
About sleeping,
Yeah.
they will have a good result of test.
Okay, so a forecast would be, today I'm going to tell you how to score really good on a test. And everybody's like, he's going to tell me a secret, how to score well on a test. Well, the truth is, if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to fail for sure. So the secret to scoring good on a test is get some sleep before you show up to class. And so that could be my forecast. My forecast is, today I'm going to tell you. And then I tell you what I am going to tell you. That's my forecast. I'm giving away little bits and pieces of my speech, essentially, in my forecast. And then, before I get to the closing, I can do a summary, right? In fact, in my closing, I want to do a summary. So what do I say in my summary in a speech like this? What would I say? Come on, make up a summary for me. Work with me. If you were giving my speech, what would you say in a summary? The central point is lack of sleep means you'll fail. In life, it could be in life. It doesn't mean necessarily class or school or anything like that. But, so what would be my summary? What would I say? Because remember, I was going to talk about the importance of sleep. I'm going to use the baby example. I'm going to talk about all the different illnesses, the things that happen because you don't sleep and how bad it is for you. And I'm going to have some third point, whatever. I haven't come up with it yet. But in summary, I would say,
If you get enough sleep, your life will be successful and healthy.
yes, because sleep is important, as I told you. And if you don't sleep, you're going to get sick. And I'm going to reiterate my speech. I'm going to take the points of my speech and I'm going to make them, I'm going to restate what I already said in a summary. The summary is a full reflection of my content. Why did I spend all this time talking about it if it's not important? But if it's important, then that's what I want to close with. Now remember, I also have to know the purpose of my speech. And for this speech like that, a really good purpose would be either to inform or to persuade. And depending whether I want to persuade you to get good sleep or inform you of what happens if you don't, I can take it either way. But I can flip my conclusion, my summary, to be more calling you out and trying to persuade you of something that I believe, or simply saying, maybe you didn't know this, but these are good points to be aware of. That if you don't get enough sleep, your body's not going to work because sleep is vital for us. And you will most likely get sick if you continue doing this all over again. Yeah, once in a while, no problem. You had a party, you stayed up, no big deal. You do this all the time, eventually you're going to get sick. And on and on and on. So, you guys catching the idea of what I'm trying to teach you? The introduction and the conclusion. This is where you have to grab the audience. It depends on your topic, it depends, but it could be a story, it could be an example. It can be a joke. It could be anything, as long as it fits the purpose of your speech and it ties well into what it is that you want to say. And the same thing with conclusion. I can close, see, this is how I would close. If I was making a speech on, healthy sleep or a lack of healthy sleep, I would say, how many of you have heard this saying, no pain, no gain? They usually say it about exercises. If you don't work out, you don't get the muscle. So guess what? No sleep, no success. If you want to be sure that you're going to fail in class, just stop sleeping. See what I just did? I tied it back to my central idea. But I began with a quote. But I also began with a quote that everybody knows. No pain, no gain. It's like a bumper sticker. Everybody knows it, right? So, do you see what I'm doing? I'm using something familiar. I'm using something you can already connect with. But then I'm taking that familiar idea and I'm tying it to my central idea, which is if you don't sleep, you're going to fail. So boom. It's a results-oriented type of speech. Again, I'm just showing you different techniques, and I'm doing it on the fly because I'm showing you that this is not rocket science. This is all it requires is your creativity, your perception of your audience, a little bit of creativity, how you can take that topic and develop it in a variety of different ways. Believe me, this is not complicated. I'm not like a genius or something standing in front of you. You could do this. All you need is a little bit of training and creativity.